Hi, folks. I wanted to give just a broad overview of the standards process and the review process. Content standards describe what students should know and be able to do at each grade level in certain content areas. What that means is that we're not saying that we're describing what students should have in terms of daily instruction, but what we're saying is we want a solid foundation, a common foundation of expectations around the state in terms of what is learned. So the first thing I would like to say is there's a big difference between standards and curriculum, or the ways in which the resources are used to teach the standards. So the standards would describe, for example, standards 1, 2, and 3 in English language arts describe having students have the ability to write effectively in the informational mode, the argumentative mode, and the narrative mode. But the standards don't describe how districts are to teach those standards. So there's a big difference between standards and curriculum. Curriculum is the right and responsibility of each district. And so districts adopt their own methods of instruction and their own resources and textbooks and so forth. So like most states, Idaho adopts these broad expectations across the state, but the local districts have the right and responsibility of adopting their own curricular materials and designing their own instruction. In fact, Idaho Code says that each child will be taught to the locally established content standards with the state standards as a minimum. So there's complete local control in terms of how the standards are taught. Another thing I would mention would be we're in the middle of the process here. We have brought together groups of experienced Idaho educators and stakeholders through multiple face-to-face meetings. And when those educators decide that the standards need an update, then they put forward recommendations, and those are the recommendations that you see on your table. So what we're engaged in is a routine process. Every 6 years, we go through this review process where we pull in stakeholders, educators, take a look at the standards to make sure they are the best that they can be for Idaho children, and then you see this part of the process where we're getting stakeholder input. And the last thing I would say is that we normally have fewer content areas in a single year, but what you're seeing in front of you is a result of the legislature asking us to accelerate the review of English language arts and math standards. We did that last year by having a 6-month open window online where we had radio ads around the state, where we had TV ads with Superintendent Ibarra asking for input from all stakeholders. We had thousands of comments on the English and math standards that we reviewed in December, and all of those recommendations you will see on the math and the English language arts table, and the recommendations and the dispensation of every single comment that came forward. All of that is completely transparent and online if you search for the Idaho Challenge. So that's 2 content areas that are 2 years ahead of schedule. And of course, the other 2 that the legislature asked for more comments on are arts and humanities and science. So about half of these standards are ones where the legislature has either accelerated or postponed adoption. And the last set of standards I want to comment on are the new computer science standards. We did pull together a really great group of K-20 educators and industry folks. So we now have a draft of the first K-12 computer science standards. So any questions on the process and the normal process of every 6 years looking at content standards? Okay, thanks.